A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. Amen, I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or the smallest part of a letter will pass from the law until all things have taken place. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do so will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever obeys and teaches these commandments will be called greatest in the kingdom of heaven. I tell you, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. You have heard that it was said to your ancestors, 'You shall not kill, and whoever kills shall be liable to judgment.' But I say to you, whoever is angry with a brother will be liable to judgment. And whoever says to his brother, 'Raka,' will be answerable to the Sanhedrin. And whoever says, 'You fool,' will be liable to fiery Gehenna. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar, and there recall that your brother has anything against you, leave your gift there at the altar, go first to be reconciled with your brother, and then come and offer your gift. Settle with your opponent quickly while on the way to court. Otherwise, your opponent will hand you over to the judge, and the judge will hand you over to the guard, and you will be thrown into prison. Amen, I say to you, you will not be released until you have paid the last penny. You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you, everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than to have your whole body thrown into Gehenna. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than to have your whole body go into Gehenna. It was also said, 'Whoever divorces his wife must give her a bill of divorce.' But I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, unless the marriage is unlawful, causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, you have heard that it was said to your ancestors, 'Do not take a false oath, but make good on all the Lord has done.' But I say to you, do not swear at all, not by heaven, for God, it is God's throne, nor by earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Do not swear by your head, for you cannot make a single hair white or black. Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. Anything more is from the evil one." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Later today, the Super Bowl between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles will be an important moment, as I was reading in the paper the other day, for a guy named Brad Hill. Never heard of him before, but Brad Hill is the leader of this company called Gloo, spelled Gloo, which is a digital faith-based communication platform entitled 3 words, "He gets us." He gets us. The he is Jesus, and is designed to revitalize the image of Jesus in America. So 2 of Brad Hill's ads will be aired tonight during the Super Bowl, with over 100 million folks looking on and observing this. He gets us. he gets us as a sort of, as I'm reflecting upon this gospel today, a segue into this Super Bowl Sunday homily on Sexagesima Sunday, which is the second Sunday before Lent, or 60 days before Easter. Basically, today's gospel is an introduction to Lent, reminding us that he gets us. In other words, he, Jesus, understands human nature, even though, at least today, his words seem rather harsh. If your eye causes you to sin, tear it out. If your hand is your problem, cut it off. Is he serious? Does he really mean it? Or is it just hyperbole? Does Jesus want us to take him literally in this gospel today? It sounds like he's encouraging a throwaway culture. Throw away your eye. Throw away your hand. But he gets us. And in hearing this gospel, you might say he gets our attention with these words. Every now and then, drastic means are actually necessary. Last week, I visited my brother-in-law who survived a horrible car accident last April after being on a ventilator for 60 days. And so because of that, he has to throw away. He has to throw away his lungs, as it were, and get transplanted ones. Sometimes a person's colon has to be removed in order to save the life of that person who has colon cancer. Or a gangrened foot has to be amputated to save the leg and the life. So there's many examples of that, this kind of radical work in medicine. Likewise, in our emotional lives, sometimes drastic measures are necessary. In my own family and others, sometimes divorce is necessary to save the family or to protect the kids when there's emotional illness and all other means have been tried but failed. Sometimes a person has to quit a job because the temptations with coworkers could compromise a marriage or a person's ethical principles. Sometimes a person in recovery from alcohol abuse, has to literally cut off people, places, and situations that could lead to a relapse. Neither the eye or the hand or any other part of the body causes one to sin. We can be sure that Jesus wasn't advocating self-mutilation because the words surrounding this passage that we hear today all emphasize that the human heart is the source of sin. Even as we get ready to anticipate Valentine's Day, the human heart is the source of sin. But he gets us. He understands human nature. He understands the human heart. And so what we need to tear out and throw away are the inner attitudes of lust, of hatred, of greed, and so on, that really do lead to sin. And so when Jesus forbids anger, as well as murder, abusive language, as well as abusive behavior, lust, as well as adultery, he's doing more than saying that we have to follow the Spirit as well as the letter of the law. And so he's integrating action and intention, body and soul, the exterior and the interior, words and thoughts. And he's challenging and changing a tradition, a temptation, and a tendency which divorces external compliance with the law from internal commitment to its purpose and value. You know, scrupulous people tend to think that everything is a sin. And so any lustful, crude, or nasty thought brings that person anxiety and maybe to confession. People with lax consciences, on the other hand, can rationalize away almost every sin. The healthy person, though, neither scrupulous nor lax, realizes that temptation is like a knock at the door. We can open the door and see who's there, but we have a choice. We have a choice of whether we're going to invite the person in as a guest. Lustful thoughts may come knocking, but we don't have to entertain them. Thoughts of greed, thoughts of revenge, thoughts of bitterness or pride may come knocking, but we can slam the door before they get a foothold inside. We don't have a choice about temptations, but we do have a choice about what we do with them. We can amputate the thought or allow it to gradually harm or kill us, at least metaphorically or spiritually. Jesus understands that. He gets it. He gets us. And in a sense, Jesus speaks about the little things that can erode our relationship with God and others, little compromises that left unchecked can lead to major personal, perhaps legal, maybe emotional or spiritual offenses with consequences. Doctors tell us all the time that what we eat, what we feed our bodies, is going to affect our health. We are what we eat. And likewise, many wise people have also told us that what we feed our minds is also going to affect, in many ways, us spiritually, emotionally, socially. We become what we think. And so despite the efforts of civil libertarians to protect our freedom, to feed our minds on whatever unhealthy, toxic, or woke diet we choose to, scientific research continues to demonstrate what's obvious to most common sense people, namely that there is a connection. There is a connection between what shapes our thinking and also how we behave. Studies prove that viewing violence on TV definitely encourages aggressive and violent behavior. So Jesus says, if your eye is your problem, cut it out, metaphorically. Our emotional, our moral, our social health begins with what's in or what's on our minds. And so he tells us not only that murder is wrong, but so is the mental attitude of hatred and unforgiveness that we may choose to carry around with us like baggage. And even if we never act on it by killing someone, an attitude of hatred, an atmosphere of revenge will affect not only the person who holds on to such feelings, but also his or her relationships with lots of other people. We hear in the first reading today that Sirach tells us that God sets before us life and death, good and evil. Whatever we choose, we will have. Whatever we choose, we will have. Choosing to hold on to negative and sinful or evil thoughts will only bring those kind of results. So there's an area of psychology called cognitive therapy. I studied in a social work school. And it sort of helps people to control their thoughts. For example, how can we be happy if we're always thinking negative, depressing, gloomy thoughts? What we feed our minds through TV or through the internet or the things that we think about ourselves affects not only the way we behave, but also the way we feel. So when you think about it, thoughts are like seeds that we put into the ground. And the kind of seed we put in will determine the kind of plant that we will be or grow into. So the Super Bowl commercial that this guy, Brad Hill, is actually paying $20 million for tonight, 2 commercials, will remind us that Jesus, gets us. He gets us. Jesus, the best spiritual director, the astute counselor of God, tells us today to cut off, to try to eliminate whatever isn't good for us. And so, that is the work of life. That is the work of Lent that we anticipate. That's the work that we'll hear about exactly 2 weeks from today on Temptation Sunday, when we hear in Jesus' own life, his own struggles in the desert, like us in all different ways. So he tells us to gain control over our thoughts, to make good choices, to choose life as to what we feed our minds and what we put into our heads. Because for better or for worse, our thoughts are going to control us. In other words, like that commercial, he gets us.